In 21 days, I was in Kailash. I took one strand of what is there on that mountain. You won't believe, in 2.5 hours, I was almost 10 to 15 years young.
There is a secret hidden in the Himalayas that science is afraid to touch. It looks like a mountain, but it acts like a machine. Mount Kailash has baffled researchers for decades.
I closed my eyes and I did what I have to do with my system, which gave me a respite.
Yes.
But still, I was not fully there, still very weak and like that, but I just bounced back in 2.5 hours' time.
When you look at the satellite maps, it lines up perfectly with ancient sites on the other side of the planet. When you stand at the base, time seems to speed up. Nails grow faster, hair turns gray, and energy drains away. This isn't just a story about a sacred peak, it is a mystery about the true history of our world. The Forbidden Ascent. It is great news for hikers and travelers in India because in just 2 months, they will be able to trek to Mount Kailash right from the Indian border. Mount Kailash rises from the Tibetan plateau, looking almost too perfect to be real. For centuries, people have called it sacred, untouchable, and even forbidden. But recent observations are making its mystery deeper than ever. Patterns along its surface appear less like random geology and more like a planned design. Instruments at its base record strange disturbances that no one can explain. And when researchers compared maps, they noticed something absolutely shocking. Kailash lines up with ancient sites thousands of miles apart. The closer you look, the less it feels like stone and ice, and the more it feels like a secret hidden in plain sight. But seeing it from a distance is one thing. Trying to conquer it is another story entirely. Most mountains stop people with ice, height, and exhaustion, but Mount Kailash does something different. Those who have gone toward it often say the problem isn't physical strength or skill. It is the feeling that something pushes back long before the climb truly begins. Climbers describe it as a resistance that no rope, training, or equipment can prepare you for. One of the earliest people to say this openly was British mountaineer Hugh Rutledge. In 1926, after studying the mountain firsthand, he said it was utterly unclimbable. This wasn't about fear at all. Rutledge had years of experience on harsh and dangerous peaks. Yet Kailash left him with the strong feeling that it could not and should not be conquered. What mattered wasn't how steep it was or the weather. It was the sense that the mountain itself set limits. Decades later, the pattern continued when a rare permit was granted to a Spanish climbing team in 2001. The mountain's sacred status usually keeps climbers away, so expectations were high. But just before the trip began, the team suddenly dropped the plan. Reports described seeing things that weren't there, sudden sickness, and a deep, heavy fear that none of them could explain. These were skilled climbers, yet something happened that made them turn back before even touching the climbing routes. Other attempts went further and ended in a much darker way. Members of a scientific group once thought about climbing and were warned by a Tibetan monk to leave the mountain alone. They listened and returned home. Within a year or two, none of the 4 survived. Russian climber Sergei Sistiakov described a similar experience in personal terms. As he approached the mountain, he felt the expected effects of the high altitude. But mentally, something felt wrong. His heart raced without reason. A single thought repeated itself in his mind. He did not belong there. Relief only came when he turned around. He later said it felt as though the mountain had rejected him and that leaving felt like being allowed to breathe again. What stands out in nearly every account is not panic, but clarity. People don't run away in chaos. They stop. They rethink. And when they turn away, many describe a strange sense of calm, as if retreating was the right choice all along. The closer people get, the narrower their thinking becomes, looping back on fear and doubt until moving forward no longer feels possible. In those moments, turning back doesn't feel like failure. It feels like permission. No ropes snap, no cliffs collapse. The decision happens quietly inside the mind where resistance feels absolute. And once made, that decision is rarely regretted. It simply feels necessary. The thief of time. While the mind struggles to make sense of the climb, the body begins to experience something far more disturbing. Stories from Mount Kailash do not stop with fear or retreat because some accounts describe time itself behaving incorrectly near the mountain. These reports are not told loudly or dramatically. They are usually shared in a quiet tone, almost shyly, as if the speakers are unsure how to explain what they experienced without sounding crazy. The most common claim involves rapid physical changes. Members of a Russian scientific expedition in the late 90s reported meeting Siberian climbers who returned from the slopes looking drastically older than when they left. Hair that had been dark turned gray within days. Beards and fingernails appeared longer than should have been possible in such a short period. Faces showed deep lines and sagging skin as if years had passed instead of hours. Normally, the human body cannot change this way. Hair growth follows a strict schedule. Nail growth is slow and easy to measure. Aging adds up over time, it is not sudden. That is what makes these accounts so scary. Observers insisted these changes were not small. Some of the individuals who reported the most extreme aging did not live long afterward. Within a few years, they passed away from conditions usually seen in very old people. Despite having been young and healthy before their trip, there was only the shared detail of time spent near the mountain. Explanations have been offered, but none settled the uneasy feeling. Extreme height can stress the body, changing how you look for a short time through lack of water, thin air, and weight loss. Immense fear can change how you see things, making people appear older in moments of crisis. What makes the idea more unsettling is how locals speak of the area. Tibetan traditions warn that Mount Kailash exists outside ordinary time. Pilgrims believe that a single lap around its base can erase a lifetime of bad deeds, while repeated laps can free a soul entirely from the cycle of rebirth. In this belief, time near the mountain does not flow normally. It speeds up, squeezes tight, or changes form. Whether these stories describe physical change, mental stress, or something stranger remains unknown. What is clear is that those who return often describe a sense that something was taken from them. Not energy, not health, but time. Hours, years, or futures they cannot clearly define. The mountain does not announce this trade. It simply allows people to leave changed, carrying evidence on their bodies and faces that something fundamental shifted while they were there. And if time can behave differently near Kailash, then fear and retreat begin to look less mysterious. Perhaps the mountain is not dangerous because of what it does, but because of what it changes. That possibility alone is enough to make even skeptics pause before ignoring every account. Where machines go to die. It is not just human biology that falls apart here because machines seem to suffer the same fate. The first signs are often small. Compasses, the most basic tools for finding your way, stop behaving predictably. Hikers have reported needles spinning without settling, pointing nowhere meaningful. Others describe compasses locking in place, refusing to respond at all. In a landscape where rocks look the same and weather shifts quickly, that loss of direction is more than a hassle. It removes certainty. Higher above the mountain, the pattern continues. Pilots flying regional routes have long noted that planes are not permitted to pass directly over the peak. Officially, the region is restricted airspace, but the reason is rarely discussed in detail. Unofficially, stories circulate of instruments giving conflicting readings, sudden signal loss, and unexplained turbulence. Modern aircraft rely on layers of backup systems. For multiple sensors to act up at the same time is unusual. Drones add another layer to the puzzle. In recent years, researchers and camera crews have tried to fly unmanned aerial vehicles near the slopes. Many never made it far. Some lost signal and dropped straight from the sky. Others returned messy footage before shutting down entirely. Batteries drained faster than expected. Steadying systems failed without warning. Engineers examining the devices afterward often found no obvious damage. Then there is the weather. Storms near Kailash are described as sudden rather than gradual. Clear skies can collapse into blinding whiteouts in minutes. Snowfall so thick it erases depth and distance. What ties these failures together is loss of control. Finding your way depends on trust. Pilots trust instruments. Climbers trust tools. When those systems stop responding, the environment takes over completely. There is no villain, no visible threat, only the sense that something fundamental has shifted against you. Skeptics point to geology. Magnetic spots exist in many parts of the world. High-altitude weather is famously hard to predict. Electronics behave poorly in cold, thin air. All of this is true, yet in most places these effects are random. Near Kailash they appear layered and constant. When machines stop making sense, people retreat faster. A spinning compass does not inspire debate. A grounded drone does not argue. These failures cut through belief and disbelief alike. The mountain does not need to frighten anyone. It only needs to disrupt the tools humans rely on to feel in control. And once that control is gone, the decision to leave becomes simple. Whatever is happening there does not require belief to work. It only requires you to be close. The mirror of opposites. While the mountain defies logic, the waters sitting in its shadow offer a puzzle that is just as confusing. Lake Manasaravar is calm, fresh, and clear. A mirror that holds the sky without complaint. Even at extreme heights when other waters lock into ice, Manasaravar resists freezing, holding a smooth surface while winds pass overhead. Beside it lies Rakshastal, restless and salty. Its water is constantly disturbed as if something below refuses stillness. Travelers say standing between them feels like stepping across an unseen border. At night, the calm lake becomes stranger. Witnesses describe small points of light crossing the surface, drifting on their own rather than reflecting stars. The water itself changes color from day to day, moving through blues, greens, and occasional red shades. But for those present, the effect feels deliberate, as though the lake responds to something unseen. Paths around the lakes add to the uneasy feeling. Pilgrims walking the ritual circuit speak of trails fading and reappearing, routes that seem solid one day and absent the next. The land offers no clear mistake, no collapse or wearing away, only a quiet refusal to remain the same. Direction dissolves slowly, encouraging doubt rather than panic. As sunlight lowers across the southern face of the mountain, shadow patterns briefly line up into recognizable forms. Lines stretch across snow and stone, crossing at clean angles before breaking apart again. For believers, these moments carry meaning. For skeptics, they remain just luck and light. Either way, the experience leaves a mark. The lakes do not threaten. They contrast side by side. They present a balance that refuses blending. Calm does not tame chaos. Freshness does not soften salt. Whatever rules govern this place allow opposites to exist without fixing them. And standing there watching one surface remain still while the other churns, it becomes difficult to decide which behavior is normal. The water does not answer questions. It reflects them quietly until observers leave with more uncertainty than they brought. People linger here longer than planned, not because it feels welcoming, but because leaving feels unfinished. Photographs rarely match memory. Sounds travel oddly across the surface, arriving late or twisted. Even silence feels layered, as if echoes never fully fade. When visitors finally walk away, they carry no single explanation. The lakes remain behind them, unchanged and opposed, insisting that understanding is not required for something to exist. Looking up from the water, the eyes are drawn back to the peak, where the shape of the mountain raises a question that science struggles to answer. Up close, Mount Kailash feels solid, heavy, and undeniably real. But from a distance, its shape raises questions that refuse to settle. Unlike most Himalayan peaks, Kailash rises with near-perfect balance. 4 steep faces descend toward the north, south, east, and west, forming clean edges that look measured rather than worn down. In a range shaped by violent earth-moving forces and constant erosion, this kind of order feels unusual. This is where a different line of thought begins. The Matterhorn in Switzerland and Alpe Mayo in Peru are also sharply shaped, but their balance breaks down when looked at closely. Kailash holds its form from multiple angles. Is Mount Kailash simply a natural wonder shaped by luck and culture, or is something deeper happening there? Something we still don't have the words to describe. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, make sure you hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on more mysterious stories like this one. Until next time.